So here we have last time we have discussed some very important verses related to uh, body and how it compares with a machine. And there we saw why it is important to have this perspective, because unless we are able to understand, unless we are able to visualize the body and its functions, and also try to visualize the mind and its function, we may not be able to control. So all we are looking at is being good controllers of mind and body. So first thing in yoga, first thing in the yogic practice is to be able to control the mind. And for that, being a good observer of the mind is very important. And that's what we have been discussing. And towards that, in a lot of good examples also have been covered related to this analogy between the body mind complex and a modern day intelligent machine. And we have discussed some of these verses as well, which talk about how, if you are able to control the mind, if you are able to control the hardware, software of the machine, how it can help us in getting established in equanimity. So these verses over here, they are giving us the characteristics of a person who has good control over his mind, a good control over his thought. So we discuss all these verses as well. And finally, uh, we had the last couple of verses over here where uh, we discussed the hierarchy of body, mind, and intelligence. So here we looked into the body and the sense organs as input output devices, and how the mind is superior to it because it can control it, it can take inputs from it, it can observe all these senses, and it can control it. Likewise, intelligence, using intelligence, the self can control the mind. It can take input from the mind, but what exactly to do, what not to do, it can control as well. So therefore, the self and the intelligence, they are higher than the mind. The highest one is self, and we need to visualize this hierarchy by reflecting on its frequency. So just by reading once or listening to it once does not help us. We need to contemplate on it. We need to spend some time thinking on it, trying to basically observe the waves in the mind, trying to observe the thoughts coming in the mind and all that. Then only we are able to arrive at a position where we are able to detach ourselves from the functions of the mind, and we are also able to control it. So this is the overall process that is given. Now, next if we look at some of the other very important verses that we have taken from the second chapter, which indicate the usefulness, why we should be going for this process. So uh, some of the verses over here that are given, we'll go through that and we'll also try to interpret them, we'll try to discuss them through some examples. And also feel free, if you want to share certain things, certain experience related to these verses, related to these statements, feel free to interrupt and share your experience as well. So we have discussed this first verse over here. In this slide, the first verse, Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan, we have discussed this particular verse, which basically tells us that if we are able to control the thoughts, the flux of thoughts which are running in the mind all the time, and their underpinning desires, because thoughts come when we look at the thoughts, when we trace the thoughts, when we trace the sources back, we inevitably come to the point where there are certain desires. So the thoughts will always be roaming around some desires, some core desires. So we took some examples last time also. And therefore, if we go deeper and try to analyze every thought that is coming to the mind, there will be some desire that somebody has not given us due respect, and therefore we have desire to get that back. Or somebody has insulted us, we have desire to take revenge. Or somebody, we are trying to gain something, we are trying to gain some benefit, some advantage out of some activities. So we are thinking about that. Or there are some problem coming, so rather than solving the problem, we are having fear, we are having speculation, we are thinking about a lot of things, we are imagining what will happen, what will not happen. So all that is fear. So that means there will be many thoughts, some related to positive, some related to negative, trace back the source of each of these thoughts, what is the motivation behind each of these thoughts. So there will be some desire. So that is again a matter of observation. So through careful observation, once we see that okay, whatever thought is coming right now, what is the origin of it? What is the motivation behind it? Most of the cases we will arrive at certain desires which are motivating us to think in a particular direction. So that is about this particular verse. So here it says that if you are able to basically control this continuous flow of desires from all around, and we are able to establish ourselves away from the mind, means elevate ourselves, detach ourselves from the mind, become observers of mind, become observers of the continuous flow of desires that are coming into us, and then after becoming observer, finally starting to control them, finally starting to dictate them. Hey, this thought is not healthy. This thought is not good. These are unnecessary thoughts which are coming just to make me run behind something, run after something. So those thoughts, those desires, those thought processes need to be controlled. So unless we are able to observe and carefully uh, judge the right thought, what is the wrong thought, which thoughts are generated for good activities, positive activities without unnecessary desires, and which thoughts are just about worry, fear, desire, anger, hatred, attachment, all kinds of things. So we need to carefully trace the desires and see wherever there is a possibility, wherever there is a tendency to seek pleasure out of certain things, the desires will be linked to those tendencies, those sources of pleasure, and therefore we'll be thinking about that. So cutting off from those sources, that is very important. Mentally cutting off from those sources, that is very important. So this second verse given over here is also along the same theme. यदा समरते चायं कूर्मो अंगानीव सर्वशः इंद्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यस्तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. So here it says yada samharate chayam kurmo angani sarvacha. Kurmo means a tortoise, a turtle. So just like a turtle, angani va sarvashaha means all his body parts. Anga means all the body parts. So the just like a turtle, samharate chayam. Samharate means he withdraws within himself. So just like a kurma or a turtle withdraws all his limbs within himself and only extrudes them, only extends them out when it is required. Just like that, we should operate. We should indriyani indriyarthebhya. Just like that, we should also control our indriya, the karmendriya and the jnanendriya. So last time we have discussed two categories of indriya. There are jnanendriya, which are used for acquiring information from outside, and there are karmendriya, which are used for performing activities. All the limbs of the body, they are performing activities. So all these Gyanendriya and Karmendriya, just like a tortoise is able to uh, basically uh, basically withdraw all his limbs, all his indriyas within himself, we should also have that degree of control. We should practice that degree of control. That means we should be able to withdraw ourselves mentally and physically from numerous external factors. So this is about insulating ourselves from external influence. Just like a tortoise is able to insulate itself from external influences, here we are being recommended to do the same. We should practice this process of being able to insulate ourselves from external influences, external factors. So there may be many people thinking about many things, talking about us, saying negative things. Some people may have negative things about us. Maybe some people are having envious thoughts. Some people are having angry thoughts. Many people are having many kinds of thoughts. Some people may have good thoughts about us or some good feelings about us. So people's thought, people's emotions, we can't control. They are free to think in whatever the way they want, according to their own nature, according to their own tendencies. They will think. If there is a very very cunning person, whatever good you do to that person, he will always think in a negative. Should not get emotionally attached or disturbed or agitated because of others' mental status, others' feelings, other thoughts, others' emotions, others' actions towards us. So that is about insulating. So it's not just physical insulation, but mental, emotional isolation as well. So we should have that much control. We should not start extending our thoughts unnecessarily towards external factors. So any problem comes, we are projecting our thoughts in that direction, and we start getting attached to that. We start thinking over it again and again without thinking about the solution actually, but rather thinking about the problem and then imagining a lot of issues, imagining a lot of bad results. So that is the bad approach. That is a negative approach which is going to hurt us. Likewise, uh, even if we like some person, there also we took example. If we start thinking about one person continuously because we like him or her because of any reason, and reasons may be many. Reasons may be that person is good in behavior, or he's kind towards us, or he or she is physically attractive, and we are attracted towards that person. And then there are many reasons why we may get attached to an external individual as well. So for all these reasons, if our mind goes towards an external person also and starts thinking about him or her favorably and trying to derive some pleasure out of those thoughts, that okay, this person said some good word to me, and therefore uh, I should have company of that person, and therefore I am continuously thinking and planning how to be with that person, how to associate with that person, and how to derive that pleasure again and again. So we are trying to make that person source of our pleasure. So we are trying to gratify our emotions. That's what we are trying to do exactly, right? So just like when we like some food, so when we like some food product like cake, you have a cake and you like the taste, so you will be attracted towards it. You are having some thoughts in the mind, some emotions, some memory in the mind, not really emotion, but memory in the mind, some experience in the mind, which drives you towards that. So you are storing some experience in the mind, in your memory, which drives you towards that object again and again. So what is that object? That object is actually our source of pleasure. We are trying to derive pleasure out of that sensation, which comes after keeping that cake on our tongue. So we are just trying to experience that pleasure again and again. So we are making that cake object of our pleasure. So that object is called sense object because we are perceiving that object through our senses. So therefore that object becomes a sense object, and we are trying to derive pleasure out of that sense object through the medium of tongue. And ultimately it goes to the brain, right? It goes to the mind. So the mind experiences that pleasure. So mind only is instigating us to experience it again and again, and we are pursuing that source of pleasure. So that can be an object, that can be a place also. Maybe we are getting attached to some place too much. This place is my favorite. I want to go there again and again. Or we may have some comfort zone. We want to have this particular location, and this is my hometown. I don't want to go out of it because I have some attachment to it. Attachment may not be for a good purpose, may not be for a higher purpose, but just because of our comfort, just because of getting some emotional pleasure out of it, we are getting attached. So that is also not the right attachment. That is not a right kind of attitude. to understand the psychology. So this is just like uh, understanding the psychology behind all these processes and the psychology behind the sources of disturbance for the mind. Like what are the different sources of disturbance? Why the mind goes in a certain direction if it goes, and then how do we trace that source and try to bring the mind back. So this is the process. First of all, we have to observe. So if we look at the sixth chapter, in sixth chapter, which is called Atma Sanyam Yoga. So what I have mentioned earlier is that each chapter of Gita is having a name and it ends with a yoga. So the sixth chapter is Atma Samyam Yoga, which says, which basically means the yoga of self-control, Atma Sanyam. So the sixth chapter is about techniques used for self-control, and of course there are descriptions. What does it mean by self-control, and how do we achieve it? So again, there also there are a lot of verses about this particular issue of observing the mind, controlling the mind, subduing the mind, and there is a process mentioned over there. So one of the verses says that uh, wherever the mind goes, means if the mind is going a certain direction, we need to pull it back and restrain and practice this process again and again. So this is a simple process mentioned in the sixth chapter, and it is said that if you practice this again and again, then we will be having better control over the mind. So initially, your mind may be very flickery. Means if you are just trying to sit alone and trying to do some meditation or trying to do some japa or trying to even read something, the mind may go to 10 different directions. Even we are trying to discuss or attend a talk or a seminar or any kind of educational session as well. There also our mind doesn't remain fixed. It doesn't remain focused. While the person is talking in front of us, the mind may go to 10 different directions. We may not be so attentive. So again, the core over here is this practice has to be done of pulling the mind back and controlling it, restraining it, pulling the thoughts, or basically pulling the mind away from the thoughts, restraining it from wandering in any random direction on its own. So getting out of the autopilot mode. That's what we discussed last time. We have to get out of this autopilot mode. Without that, doesn't work. If we are letting the mind go uncontrolled, then it's a dangerous situation because it can multiply thoughts very easily. It can exacerbate negative conditions. It can let us basically believe that we are into extreme troublesome situations, and it can let us imagine anything. Therefore, restraining the thoughts is important, and that is a process also mentioned in the sixth chapter. So definitely we will have some more detailed discussion on the content in sixth chapter. But here also the verses that I have taken from the first, the second, and the third chapter, they are also having similar strategies mentioned over there. And apart from that, of course, there are many other things that we are yet to cover, like the principles of karma yoga. How do we do our activities at yoga? How do we perform karma as yoga? And we have many famous verses regarding karma yoga, which is also mentioned in the Gita. But why I am looking at these verses first, because these are the core, means controlling the mind, subduing the mind, becoming observer of the mind, being able to restrain the thoughts of the mind, being able to decide where the mind should go, what I should think, what I should not think, being able to identify what is the origin of thought, what is the motivation behind each of the thoughts. That is also very important. So all these things, all these factors, uh, you know, they come by practice, by more and more practice, by more and more alertness. Then only we are able to trace all the games being played by the mind, and then only we are able to control this succession of thoughts which are going in an uncontrolled way currently. So it definitely takes practice, and even if we do practice, sometimes if we become careless, means suppose we are trying out, we are doing practice, but one day we become relaxed that okay, enough of this mindfulness, enough of this meditation. Let me relax today. I will not be so attentive. I will not be so careful. I will not keep a watch over those thoughts. So again, it will drag us in 10 different directions. So it is a continuous process, and we have to basically keep trying to be able to do that. So it's not that if we try for 5 days or 6 days, we will get perfection, and after that, we don't need to be alert. This alertness, this awareness, this conscious operation of the mind, that always takes practice, and that needs continuous effort, that needs continuous awareness. So what we are all discussing here is a conscious thought process. What we generally do if we don't control our thoughts, it is a I would say, self-propelled process. We don't have any control. Generally, we are being dictated by the mind, by the pull of the mind. But if we practice this observation principle, that okay, be observer of your mind, be careful about the thought, watch your thought, watch the origin behind the thought, what is the main motivation, what is the desire behind the thought, you carefully watch it, and then only you will be able to nab it. So if you are able to nab the desire, if you are able to nab the desire that this is wrong desire, I should not even think about it. Suppose a person is bad towards us, they have behaved badly with us, and we are having some grudges. We want to take some revenge. So that thought is the bad thought. So if you are able to, once we are maybe doing some meditation, that person is coming in our mind. We are feeling angry, some angry feeling is coming in our mind, and then we observe that right now I'm getting agitated. I'm doing some mantra chanting. I'm doing some jap. I'm doing some meditation. But that person, that story that has happened with me last week, that is coming to the mind. Now, if I am able to trace it, okay, why that thought is coming? Because I'm angry with that person. Why I am angry? Because that person has said something. What I want to do? That thought is telling me that I want to take some revenge. I'm planning to take the revenge. I'm planning to do certain things which will hurt him. So we are able to trace the desire. This is a harmful desire. I should nab it right at the origin. So being able to observe the thoughts, being able to decide that okay, ultimately all these thought desires which are coming, ultimately they are going to hurt us, and therefore we need to curb them at the origin. And so this is the analogy given over here also, that when a tortoise is withdrawing its limbs from outside, and we are comparing, we are trying to basically obtain that status. That means that we are not only talking about physical limbs. We don't just need to control our physical limbs. It is also about our thoughts and emotions, because indriya doesn't only mean the physical indriya. Indriya also means the subtle indriya, the mind, emotions, ego. These are our subtle aspects. So restraining from outside, that also means restraining the thoughts, emotions, ego, etc. from outside contact and trying to pull them inside. There are several examples that I have already given, some basic uh, scenarios. Then we have. I will try to share the screen once again, try to see whether this is working at any point of time. If it does get shared, please let me know. I can see there is screen one coming. I don't know what is that. Are you able to see the screen now?
Yeah, it's visible.
So I think there was in the sharing there was some issue, and there are two screens coming right now. It is visible. So let's go ahead with this. So therefore, this tortoise example is very important to meditate on. It's very important to recall and remember again and again. What is it talking about? Not only the physical limbs, but withdrawing the thoughts, withdrawing the desires, withdrawing the contact. So one of the verse is later in later chapters. It says, "Yehi samparsa ja bhoga dukkha yonya evate adi antavanta kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha." Means whatever pleasure we try to derive from external contact, means yehi samparsa ja. Samparsa means external touch, external contact. So yehi samparsa ja bhoga. That means whatever pleasure we try to derive from external contact, external touch, external touch with objects, from people, external touch with circumstances, with thoughts, with emotions. So we'll see that if our tendency is outgoing, we are always trying to basically go towards external objects in our thoughts, in our emotions, in our thinking process, and also we are trying to take our bodily functions towards external things. If somebody's, something is looking tasty, we should go and have it. That is the tendency we have. Likewise, if some person is looking attractive because of any aspect, because of his appearance or his thought process or his intelligence or his any personality aspect, there is a tendency that our mind tries to go towards that external person and try to again and again think about that person. That is also an example of trying to derive pleasure from external sources. Likewise, our own ego, right? So we will have many sources of gratifying our ego. Like we expect that, okay, means some of our relatives may praise us, or some of our friends should appreciate us, or our organization should be giving reward to us for good work. So all these things are going to help boost our ego. So ego will also try to go outside and try to see which sources will give me pleasure, which sources will give me gratification. So even at the thought level, even at the subtle level, we are trying to go out. Our tendency is outgoing through ego, through emotions, through desires, and we try to derive pleasure from all these external sources. This is the core tendency in our thought process. So withdrawing doesn't mean that we have to withdraw only physically. Withdrawing means withdrawing uh, to the subtle faculties also. Withdrawal of gross faculty is important, but equally important is withdrawal of subtle faculties, withdrawal of thoughts, emotions, ego, etc. And there can be n number of examples related to this. Uh, so ultimately, this concept of going outward and trying to enjoy certain things, even if you're not, our ultimate target or ultimate objective happens to be trying to settle certain things or trying to some normal things. So desire always pulls in different directions, and that may entangle us in many conditions. That may get us into trouble in many conditions. That will not let us have a stable and equanimous mind. So, in order to attain stability, this outgoing tendency of the thought that has to be restrained, and we have to become the judges and the controller. Next, we have some other important and interesting verses over here. Like this particular slide, able to see this. So here we have a couple of very interesting and important verses. This is taken again from second chapter. So here it says, Indriyanam hicharatam yanmano tadasyah vayur navam ivam bhasi. Indriyanam means senses. Indriya means senses, gross senses, subtle senses, senses of perception, senses of action. So we have seen Jnanendriya, Karmendriya. So mind is also among senses. Mind is a pivot of senses. So Indriya doesn't mean only the Jnanendriya. Indriya means Karmendriya also, Jnanendriya also, mind also. Mind is the king of Indriya. Mind is regarded as the king or the central point of Indriya. So on whatever in the mind focus, Indriyanam hi charatam, yan mano anuvidhyate, mana anuvidhyate, means the mind focuses on any that particular indriya, tasya harati pragyam. That particular indriya, tad asya harati means steals away. Pragyam means the intelligence, the wisdom, the deciding power. Vayur navam ivam bhasi. Just like in a strong wind, the boats get stolen, they get driven away by the force of the wind. Even if the uh, boater is trying to row the boat, he's trying to pedal, he's trying to row the boat. But if there is a storm on the river, the wind will be blowing the boat away in its direction. The and he will lose the control. Likewise, it is mentioned over here that the moment the mind tries to focus on any sense organ or any sense faculty, that sense of faculty will steal the mind away. It will capture the mind and drive it in that direction very easily. So this is the point where we need to cut off very quickly. So what is mentioned over here is both about subtle faculties as well as gross faculty. So if we start focusing on any of our faculties, like we have intelligence, ego, emotions, etc., and we have gross senses also, sense of taste, sense of touch, sense of uh, vision, etc. So now, for example, sense of vision. So the moment we have seen something, okay, we have seen a person who is very attractive in vision, external features, external appearance is very attractive, and we say that okay means we are feeling good to look at this person. Now, there is, of course, at the core of it, it is again just some mechanism, right? So some biological mechanism which makes us feel that something is beautiful, something is ugly. All these dualities are coming because of some biological mechanism, right? At the core of it, it is just again another patch of flesh, bone, skin. So, but because of certain certain programming in our mind, some things appear beautiful, some things appear ugly. Means ultimately, if you look at some appearance, for example, if you're looking at a particular face, what is that face? Face is having few holes, right? So you have holes like eyes, you have holes called nostril, you have another hole from which the sound is coming, mouth. You have two holes on the side called ears. Ultimately, face is just made up of these holes. So, but in certain circumstances, we may say, oh, this particular face is beautiful, this particular body is beautiful. So this is just a mechanism. Again, these are just set on the face. So what we are getting attracted towards is a certain arrangement of holes. That's all. So we need to understand what are we doing, where our faculties are taking us. So we should be observant of the mechanism. We should not become driven by the mechanism, right? Like animals do not have any judgment power, right? They are forced by the nature. They can't think logically like we do. Therefore, in our case, we should definitely be able to understand and visualize what is going on. We should be able to visualize that, okay, this is just a mechanism in which we are falling. This is just a trap in which we are falling. There is nothing, this perceptions of something which is, appearing soothing to the eyes, and we are trying to look at it again and again, trying to derive pleasure out of it. Ultimately, these are just mechanism of the eye and the brain. But rather than thinking, rather than being aware of this process, if we start contemplating on that, okay, that particular person that we have seen is so attractive, are so good, and again and again meditating on that, thinking on that, so it will drive in that direction. So it will drive us to basically think about that person, get infatuated, and all kinds of things, all kinds of thoughts will happen. So we see so many, youths also getting into all these kind of activities, and their mind gets diverted in a particular direction. So these are the things that we need to control through. If we have right intelligence and wisdom, if we are able to that there are just mechanisms behind all these senses, then we will not be letting our mind focus on those senses. So in this example, what I am showing is the mind is focusing on the sense of vision. So from eyes, whatever pleasure we are deriving, the mind is focusing on that. It has captured some image, and the mind is again and again reflecting on that image and trying to basically derive some pleasure out of it. And then what will happen subsequently? That person will try to go towards that source of that pleasure. So this is just mechanisms before which we end up surrendering. So likewise, the sense of taste, right? So if we have something which is appealing to the palate, something which is appealing to that sense of taste, we may be getting more and more inclined to have it, right? So despite knowing that, okay, these things are not good for health, some junk food that we may be eating or we may have tasted somewhere, we know in our heart, we know from our knowledge, we know from doctors, we know from our general studies that many of these junk food may not be good for health. They're going to be extremely damaging for health. But what makes us getting attracted towards that? That is the force of the mind. So again, the mind reflects on those memories, those experiences, those sensations felt by the sense organ. In this case, the sense organ is tongue. So now the mind focuses on that particular sense organ, and it recalls all the sensation, all the experience it had from that contact with that particular sense object. And therefore, it will, the moment it starts focusing, the moment it starts thinking of that process and thinking that, okay, there was some pleasure associated with that contact. The moment that food came on the tongue, I felt a good sensation. There was a good satisfaction. There was a sense of pleasure derived from that food. So what is happening? We are allowing the mind to focus on the sense organ, and then it pulls that towards that object. That is the mechanism which is mentioned over here. So indriyanam hi charatam yanmanonubudiyate. The moment we start focusing, the moment we start focusing our thought, our mind on a certain sense organ, it will pull us in that direction. It will pull us towards that sense object which it had experienced earlier. Therefore, cutting off this process right in the beginning, not allowing the mind to focus on the experiences of the sense organs. That is very important. So that is just the mechanism of thought process. So most of the time, the starting point is if we don't think, if we don't fall into the trap of assuming that there is a pleasure in that process, there is a sense that we are supposed to enjoy. So unless we remove our thought from that thinking process, we will be pulled in that direction. That is the psychology which is being explained over here, right? And the second verse therefore gives the conclusion that what you should do. So it says, Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyastasya pragya pratishtha. So therefore, O Mahabaho, O valorous one, nigrihitani sarvashah. Therefore, withdraw yourself from all these different directions. Nigrihitani sarvashah. Indriyani indriyarthebhya. Therefore, all the indriyani and indriyartha. Indriyarthi means the sense organs. Indriyarthebhya means the object of pleasure, the objects of sense organs. So there are sense organs and there are objects which give pleasure to the sense organ, right? For example, eye is a sense organ, and objects which give pleasure to the eye, they are objects of eyes. Eyes will try to attract or take us towards those objects. Likewise, the tongue is a sense organ. It will have objects of sense organ, like the food that we eat, different varieties of food. These are object of sense organ, object of the tongue. Likewise, good music, we are hearing something good, and we are getting pleasure from the music. That is the object of the sense organ once again. Ear will try to think about that music because it is giving pleasure to the mind. So mind will try to focus on those sounds, those music, those words, which are creating certain sensations, certain emotions, certain status of mind. And therefore the mind will get attracted towards those musics or those words, those songs, those lyrics again. So again, this is just a process. This is the mind is basically getting attracted, is recalling the experiences with that particular sense organ and is trying to pursue those objects. So likewise, every sense organ, it will have its own object. And the moment we start focusing on the sense organ, it will try to pull us towards that particular sense object to derive more pleasure out of it. So this is the tendency. We just focus on senses us towards their sense object to derive more pleasure out of it. This is the core mechanism which is being discussed over here. And subtle senses also. It's not just the gross senses, not just the bodily physical senses, but subtle senses like the thoughts, emotions, ego. So we took an example, right? So we have got some emotional gratification from some person or some emotional positive feelings from some person. Maybe they have said some good things about us or praised us in front of people. So we have some emotional connect, or they have done some good things for us. We have some emotional connect. And then, we think about that experience, and therefore the mind and the emotion will, try to derive more pleasure. It will try to go towards that direction, that person. It will try to remember, try to derive more and more pleasure out of it, or try to come up with situations where you can have more pleasure derived out of it. You may think of creating scenarios or circumstances where you can associate more with that person and get more pleasure out of it. So, or also you may be thinking of giving pleasure to the other person. Okay, this person has done, he has some emotional connect with me. Let me gratify his or her emotions also, so that in return I get back. This is the exchange process which goes on. So it's not that we are doing it selflessly, but it's ultimately having an objective. That means let me give some gratification to others, and in return I will get gratification for my thoughts and emotions also. So the process of subtle faculties, subtle mind, emotions, ego, they also go in 10 different directions and keep trying to extract gratification from different sources, different persons. So this outward going tendency has to be curbed. That is what is being mentioned over here all the time. So if we are able to curb this, then our dependency on others will be minimal. We keep seeing so many examples, right? So this example of subtle gratification comes to my mind because we see so many youngsters getting into some relationship, so-called relationship, and they are deriving some pleasure out of those emotions and those relations. They're trying to think about the other person in the relation again and again by thinking about their sweet words and the exchange that they have, and they get more and more attached. So what they're doing is a combination of multiple sense organs which are going. maybe there is a physical attachment because the appearance is appealing to the eyes. So the eyes are trying to derive pleasure out of it. Likewise, the emotions are also involved. So the thought process, the emotions, they are trying to also derive some pleasure out of it. So both these subtle faculty as well as gross faculty, they are trying to derive some pleasure out of it and gratify ourselves. That is the origin. So that's what is being said over here. The moment we are going outward towards any object to gratify our subtle and gross faculty, it will lead to problems. So the mind, the moment we start focusing the mind on a certain aspect, certain sense organ or certain sense faculty, it will attract us towards that. So the sense of emotion, the pleasure of mind, that is also ultimately a part of our sensory faculty. The moment we are trying to derive emotional pleasure out of something, it may look sweet. It may look, okay, this is so sweet and this is something very beautiful. Why should we not think about it for a long time? It is giving so much good feeling to us. We may think like that. But what is the outcome? It is making us dependent upon external factor. We are trying to get attached. We are basically surrendering before an external factor for driving pleasure and satisfaction for our mind. So the mind is going outward. The moment we start thinking about that process of emotional gratification, the mind focuses on it and it is getting pulled in that direction. Whatever direction it gives, it got some pleasure earlier, it is trying to think about it again and again and trying to achieve that object again and again. So that is the process of subtle faculty. Likewise, ego gratification also happens. If some process or some accomplishment or some activities give us gratification of the ego, we will try to gratify our ego in that way. So if I currently I am giving a session on Gita, if I take it on my ego that okay means I know so much and therefore other people should appreciate me, they should praise me, and they should say good things about me. Therefore, I'm trying to then gratify my ego, right? So I'm doing all this session just to gratify my ego. So if that is the case, then all these we are doing or I am giving doesn't make any sense. If we are doing is to gratify our sense of ego, that okay, people should be appreciating it more and more, and I should be elevated, and people should, respect me and all that. So that if that is the motivation, then I am pursuing my ego. Then I am basically chasing my ego rather than trying to have an attitude of service. That okay, let me do something good for the society. Let me do something good for people so that everybody can benefit and I can also benefit. Because ultimately, if I say good things about the Gita and if I am discussing about all these philosophies, ultimately it is strengthening my resolve also, my understanding also. That is a good exercise for me also. It is not just for you, but it is a good revision, good exercise, a strengthening process for me also. So rather than looking at the service attitude or looking at the contribution aspect, looking at the object of serving, helping others, helping ourselves towards a higher goal, if my objective is to gratify my sense of ego by coming to this meeting and giving all kinds of sessions and giving all the gyan, but the hidden object is to gratify my sense of ego, then it is all futile. That is what we are trying to say. Means trying if that is happening, if for example, if I am getting attached to the sense of ego, that okay means should get more and more pleasure. People are asking questions and they are appreciating all the explanations. Therefore, I should get pleasure out of it. If that is the process, then I will be getting attached to it because I'm attached to the source of pleasure. That okay, here there is a source of pleasure for me. Spending 1.5 hours, 1 hour here is a source of pleasure for me. So mentally, I'm trying to basically derive pleasure from the process. So if that is the process, it will basically eventually hurt me because I am getting more and more attached towards external factor. I am letting my happiness, I am letting my sense of equanimity, etc., depend upon external factors. If I'm not doing that, if I'm just doing it as a service without getting attached, without getting attracted towards any sense of pleasure, to worry about any issues. I can stop the lecture right now also, and I can stop doing it also. I can stay within myself. I can be equally happy. So if I make this lecture a source of my ego gratification, then I'm letting myself attached to it because I will again and again try to chase this kind of platform to gratify myself. So this tendency of the subtle faculty, tendency of the mind, ego, etc., to gratify itself through emotion, through ego, etc., it is also going to fit under the same category. So here also there are our subtle faculties which are basically pulling us in a certain direction. That is what we should always remember. This is what we should reflect at. So any activity, any thought process, what is the core motivation behind it? Is that motivation just deriving pleasure out of that activity by using other objects, by using external circumstances, by using external people, other people? If that is so, then it is going to be creating bondage for us. That is the main philosophy being discussed over here. Even right, so we may say that okay, if we go, living in a city is it may not be so interesting. You're living in a metro and there are so many people around. There is so much traffic, so much noise. So therefore, we may say that okay, those people who are living in a better place, maybe like Kharagpur. Now in Kharagpur we have a lot of greenery. On our campus we have less crowd and very well managed campus. So now if we start getting attached to that okay means I'm living in a beautiful place, nice place, green place, and I'm getting attached to that. I'm trying to derive pleasure out of all that. Then I am again trying to create limitations. I'm going to get limited by places. Then I will say, oh, let me not step out of Kharagpur. Let me not do any other activity out of Kharagpur. If for any social service, any social good, if for any bigger cause, if I have to go out and go to villages, go to any other area, go to cities, go to slums, I will not do that because I am comfortable in my comfort zone. I am getting attached to a place, right? So my subtle faculties, my mind, my emotions are getting attached to a certain place, and that is going to be limiting for me. It is going to limit my activity. It is going to limit my scope. It is going to limit my capabilities. It is going to limit my activities. So that should not happen. I should not start deriving pleasure out of places. So anything, people, places, circumstances, objects, things, they can become source of pleasure for us. We may assume that these are source of pleasure for us, and then we start getting more and more attached to those places, those people, those objects, those things, those scenarios, those circumstances. So this is what we should carefully observe, that okay, let us not get attached to these things. Let's withdraw our thought process, withdraw our body, withdraw our mind, withdraw the focus of mind from these processes. Then only we can be self-controlled. This is the core thing being mentioned over here. So Tasmadyasya Mahabaho Nigrihitani Sarvashah. That person who has from all other corners, he has withdrawn his thought process and he has withdrawn the indriya, withdrawn the sense organs from their sense objects. That person is having the right pragya or right intelligence or right wisdom. Tasya pragya pratishtita. He has the right pragya which is pratishtita. That means he has a pratisthit pragya. He has the rightly settled pragya, rightly settled intelligence. That is what is being mentioned. Stop and see whether there is any question. Any question?
Yes, I have this part.
Yeah,
You
please
told that.
speak louder. I'm not able to very clearly hear you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
You told that one who controls all his senses is actually intelligent and is situated in wisdom. And this control of senses is done through control of mind. Means mind, we have to control. That is what you're telling, is it?
Could you repeat the last part? I could not. The volume is too low, so half the thing I could not hear.
One who controls all his senses.
Yes.
Or and is situated in wisdom. Okay. So
yes.
And how it is controlled? Mind. The senses are controlled by mind or mind and thought. All these senses are to be controlled by application of mind. That is my question.
Yes, so that's what we have discussed, right? Last time also we have discussed this hierarchy that Indriyani Praniya or Indriyabhya Paramanaha Manasastu Parabuddhir Yobu Parasastu Saha. So this, if you remember this, the discussion that we had last time, this is a technique we discussed, right? So we have to first of all understand what is the hierarchy. So we have studied this earlier that Indriyani Praniyaho, Indriyani, this means the sense organs are superior to the sense object because they can sense the objects. They can acquire information about the external objects, and also they can control those external objects. Therefore, Indriyani Paraniya, or the senses or sense organs, or even our subtle faculties, they are superior to external dead objects, or basically inanimate objects, or any sense organ. Sorry, any sense object. But beyond the Indriya, there is the Manaha. The Man is the driving force for Indriya. Man, the mind acquires information. It is a pivot. It takes all the inputs and also gives dictates to the senses. So mind is the controller, or it has the power to control. So first thing is, if we don't, and beyond the mind, what is the next superior level? It is the intelligence. So if we have the right intelligence, if we are getting the right understanding that this is a process, if we are following the right intelligence of mastering the mind and being determinant about it, being forcefully basically controlling the processes of the mind, then we can basically control the senses, because ultimately the mind is only focusing on the senses. How do our senses work? So the first thing is the mind starts reflecting. So if somebody has seen something beautiful, the mind has that memory. The mind remembers that, okay, I got some sensation of pleasure. I got some sensation of happiness by looking at that object, that person, that object, or whatever. Therefore, the mind is the source. And then it is focusing on the sense organ. It is focusing on the experience obtained by the eye. And therefore, it will, the eye, the experience obtained by the eye, it will pull us in that direction again. It will try to pull us in that direction again. We will try to make situations where we can see that object again and again, right? So therefore, the desire to pursue that sense object is coming from the mind. Therefore, cutting off the desire, that is the first thing. Restraining ourselves from that point itself is the first thing.
Yes.
Likewise, food example also I gave, right? So food also similar example. So if you have remembered the taste, so I ate this particular thing. This was giving us a very nice experience, very good sensation. I remember that sensation in the tongue, and therefore I start reflecting on the sensation obtained by the tongue, and then that remembrance, that reflectance on the sense organ will drive us towards that sense object again. Therefore, the starting point is controlling the mind. The moment we see the thought is getting generated, we should see that this thought will lead our mind to focus on that sense object, and that it will lead us to focus on the experience gained by a particular sense organ, and then it will pursue, it will try to chase that sense object from which the sense organ has derived pleasure. At the core of it, there is this pleasure deriving tendency. All the time, what we are doing is trying to derive pleasure from external sources, whether it is through mind or whether it is through body. So if we see, that is what I mentioned again and again, that most of our thoughts will be geared towards deriving pleasure from external objects, situations, places, people, and so on. Either through mind, either through thoughts and emotions, or through objects, by acquiring those objects. So that's what I'm trying to explain.
Yes.
I hope that was clear.
Yes. Now it is clear.
Then we have a couple of long questions. One question is from GPIIT. I don't know who is GPIIT. Could you please name yourself? Who is GPIIT? GPIIT. Who is GPIIT? Anyway, so unless you name yourself, I will not answer. Next question is Saurav Mishra. Saurav Mishra is saying, you said that we should detach ourselves from external objects. Suppose one is trying to crack an exam, but she is not thinking about it and not attached to it, then how he or she can crack the exam? Again, having an objective is one thing. Having a target and a goal, that is a goal that I have to pursue, that is one thing, and trying to pleasure out of it, getting too attached to it, that a particular object, that is a different thing. So definitely having a goal and a mission, that is not something like a source of pleasure for us. We are not getting infatuated because of that. We are not getting too, I would say, what we are doing is we have a goal and we should have determination to pursue that goal. we should make sure that negative things do not come, negative state of mind do not come, like fear. If I don't do this, I will not be able to clear that exam, and then this will happen, that will happen. People will say that I'm not capable enough. People will make fun of me. My youngster will make fun of me. I should, make sure that this happens. Otherwise, my parents will not feel good about it. So there will be a lot of hundreds of thought processes coming in. Rather than focusing on the target and enthusiastically working behind the target, if we start having all kinds of negative thoughts and all kinds of worries, fears, emotions, then it will be detrimental. So that is what is being talked about. That okay means having a goal and pursuing it with enthusiasm. That is good because ultimately we have to progress in life. We have to do something good with our life. We have to do some good surveys. We have to join some good job. We have to contribute well. So keeping that in mind, we have identified an objective. There is an exam, and the people who clear this exam, they get good opportunities. Let me try that. Let me pursue that with full enthusiasm, without having tension, without having fear, without having worries, without having stress. Let me put my best effort and learning from the right sources, getting the right intelligence, how to prepare for it. Let me do that. But I will not get too attached to it. If I fail, if I don't do it, if I'm not able to clear it, it's okay. There are 100 other ways. We will take another way, right? So that is the thing which is being talked about. Not getting too attached, not getting too engrossed that we lose control on ourselves to start having all kinds of negative things over there. So it should not hamper our enthusiasm, definitely. Okay, and then Somain. So Somain is from GPLIT, that's what he has mentioned. And company's name, okay, the laptop's name, basically companies provided laptops. Let me now read the question. So Somain, I will remember this. So GPLIT is Somain. His question is, man is a social animal and we live in a society with family and friends. It is natural for family members to depend on each other and derive happiness from each other's company. If we detach ourselves emotionally from others, does it not make life less joyful and fails the purpose of social existence of human life? Now, there is, if you are trying to make others pleasure for a source of pleasure for you, so in a way, you are using others, right? So you are using others for your own gratification, right? So, and that source may not be permanent. That source may fluctuate. Sometimes it may give you pleasure. At the other time, it may give you pain. Even if he's your own brother and sister, at some time they may give you pleasure by their behavior. At some other point, their behavior, their response may trouble you. At some point, they may give you comfort, and some other point they may give you worry. So, making ourselves too dependent upon external factors, that is going to be detrimental. If we want to really go ahead and want to basically be strong, in that case, creating dependency on external factors is always going to be detrimental. So, understanding and observing, because it's not possible to completely eliminate emotions. What I'm saying here is what is being mentioned over here is having the capability to withdraw the emotion. Means you should not be getting controlled. Exhibiting emotions or exhibiting feelings, that is okay, but not getting overwhelmed or controlled by that, so that if it is stopped because of any reason, if that emotion is no longer available or that source of gratification is no longer available, I should not be broken. I should not be too disturbed. Whether it is there or not there should not matter so much, because things keep changing. Sources of emotions, sources of gratification, sources of all these interactions, they keep changing. For example, if a child or some person is too attached to certain emotions, then for him or her it will be difficult to go out and leave the family and go to a different city and work efficiently. He will be always feeling homesick. So we have heard of this, right? Many people feel homesick. They are not able to concentrate. They want to be, at their place. So all these things are creating attachment, right? So now remember, for example, if there are soldiers who are going for the battle, right? Right now the problem with China is coming up, and there are soldiers who are staying there at high altitude. They are working. Now, definitely they have to control their emotions. They have to control their thought process. They can't let all these attachment and homesickness disturb the higher objective. So they are on a mission. They are on a higher objective, and for that they have to, subdue. They have to basically be ready to sacrifice the emotion. They have to be ready to cows, make that sacrifice for a higher cause. That's what's being discussed. If we don't have that control, then those emotions may drive us into doing something bad also. Like many people do corruption, right? So many employees, government employees, or even private sector employees, they may be inclined to do corruption. Why are they doing corruption? Because they want to make money. Why do they want to make money? Because they want that, okay, their children should go to good schools, they should get all the good facilities, they want to have complete assurance, they want to give all the pleasure possible to their children, right? So that is also emotion. So we are getting emotionally attached to certain thing, and just to gratify that emotion, we are doing something wrong. So again, blind emotional attachment, getting infatuated, getting overpowered by emotion is not the good thing. That's what we are talking about. We are not saying that eliminate it and make it zero. We are saying that you should have control it. The tortoise, for example, example of tortoise is given, right? So tortoise, it is not that it always lives within the shell. When required, it extends itself outside. When and when there is a need, when it needs protection, when it sees there is a danger, it quickly withdraws it within the shell. That's what is being recommended. We should make the decision when to exhibit, when to withdraw. We should not have so much attachment that we are not able to withdraw. If there is a need that, okay, at this point you withdraw, we should be able to immediately withdraw. That is what is being discussed. Having full control, not falling prey to the emotions, but having full control over them. So if we want to withdraw them, if we want to withdraw our mind from those emotions, we should be able to do that. We should not feel broken, right? That is what is being discussed. For example, in a modern day, example I can take, there is some relationship and there's a breakup happens. Now we see that there is a lot of distress, on one side or the other. And then why that distress is happening, all these things are just in the mind, right? So we are not able to withdraw from that emotion. We are having some sense of gratification that was coming from that link, but now that link is severed, that is broken, and therefore now we are, devastated because we are too attached to that emotion. If we are intelligent, if we are mindful, we will see, okay, this is just a mechanism of mind. Let me withdraw my emotion. And I don't need to remember that. I don't need to continue thinking about that. Let me just withdraw. That's what is being discussed. So it's not that you have to become zero emotion, zero feeling. No. You should have control when to apply, when to withdraw. That's what is being discussed over here. I hope that is clear. Any other question? So many things discussing may look little, too serious. And also in Gita, one of the last chapter, one verse is that if we are trying this process of yoga and trying to go deeper into this, we have a very interesting verse which says that if there are two kinds of happiness. There are two kinds of happiness. One, which initially looks very pleasurable. It looks externally that it is a very good and a very effective source of pleasure. So any pleasure that is coming from external sources, that is under this category. Any pleasure which is coming because of external sources, external object, external circumstances, external people, they are in this category. Initially they look like, okay, this is pleasurable, but if we think deeper, they are causes of bondage that may make us weaker and dependent upon external people, external objects, circumstances. Whereas there is second category of pleasure, which is coming from internal happiness, from our internal balance, internal control, mindfulness, alertness. So if we are able to elevate ourselves from all these jungle of thoughts, then we come to a status where we are more equanimous. We are not touched by all these waves of thoughts and their upheavals all the time, positive, negative. Then we are above all this. And that in that state, that we are going to be more balanced and more joyful if we are just able to detach ourselves. That state, it is more permanent. It is more, I would say, stable and equanimous because it is not really dependent upon external factors. So we are recommended that we try to achieve that state. And it is also said that that state initially may look like it is very, very terrible. Means trying to even think about that and trying to detach ourselves from external things, it looks like it's very, very, very difficult and very painful, it's not so pleasurable, it is so dull and boring. How can we detach ourselves from all these things, all these thought processes? Some thought processes are so good and they are giving us so much pleasure. How should we detach ourselves? Some objects, some people, some things are giving us pleasure. How should we detach ourselves? So initially, it may look very difficult, and it may look very counterproductive. So it is said clearly that initially it may look like as if it is poison, as if we are taking poison. It may look like that, but ultimately it will turn into nectar. We will realize that it is actually nectar. But any source of pleasure which is coming from external sources, initially it may look like nectar, but finally at the end we will realize that it is poison. That is a clear verse which is mentioned also in the Gita. These are therefore initially we may feel that okay, these are discussions which are very some aspects may look like negative. Okay, we are talking about detaching ourselves, detaching our bodies, detaching our mind, controlling the mind and observing the mind, and withdrawing the emotions and controlling the emotions. So all these things may look okay, I mean, it's too difficult and complicated, but if you are able to do that and if you feel the result of that, how much peace, how much equanimity, how much control, how much balance, how much internal strength it gives us, and then after achieving that, how well we are able to do our things, how peacefully, joyfully, without getting perturbed by external circumstances, we are able to do our things, our work. Then it will, give us that feeling that yeah, this was really nectar, not poison. Any other question before we end? Anybody would like to say anything? Anybody would like to share their experience or thought? In case it is getting too heavy and too serious, you can let me know. I can try to uh, reduce the level of severity over here. All right. So I think if we don't have any question, we can end the session and we can see. We can try to meet tomorrow. Feel free to enter feedback in the feedback form. If things are looking too serious, or you're not able to understand, or not able to appreciate, or not able to basically grasp the topics, let me know. If you feel that you have some counterpoints or counter argument, I've always said that you can unmute yourself and you can discuss your point of view also. All right, so let's close the session today, and then tomorrow we'll start with another session, another interesting set of verses. And there are a lot of things to be covered, especially Karma Yoga and likewise some Atma Samyam Yoga. These are very important chapters. And why I'm covering this, why I'm covering all these aspect of mind control, etc., because it is very core. If we are understanding this, then all the other aspects then that will become also more and more clear. We can also have sessions on the devotional aspect. So all these, we have indirectly covered a lot of things. We have also covered interpersonal relations. And what is the core of relationship? It should not be just the gratification of mind and ego. So we will try to link it with relations also and try to discuss the aspects of relation. Because somebody mentioned today that okay, we are social people and we are living in family, we are living in society. So what to exactly what is meant by good relation, that is also something we will discuss. Maybe we can take it tomorrow. All right, so let us close the session today. Thank you, everyone.